if the matchmaker is good, then misplays folks will get to their true MMR faster. Well, they won't, because it's simple maths, guys. Okay, this is the last time I'm going to explain it. Simple maths. If somebody is, let's say, 3,800 and they should be 2,800, the argument of like, well, they'll eventually get to where they're supposed to be if they're bad, doesn't hold up, because the amount of time we're talking about is so much larger than the amount of time in which if you just reset everyone's MR and let them go. That's 10 games versus 100 games. That's the difference. Reset everyone's MMR and in 10 games they get to where they're supposed to be. Don't reset their MMR and it takes them 100 games to eventually drop to where they're supposed to be. That's the difference. So in a recent Ask Me Anything session on the subreddit r gaming, the Overwatch devs answered a question about MMR reset in Overwatch 2. This is what they had to say, and this is why I would really strongly recommend they reconsider. Will MMR SR for competitive play be reset on current accounts? This is what's got everyone mad. We won't be performing a complete MMR reset for Overwatch 2, but we do plan on lowering MMR of accounts who haven't played in a while as part of a new decay system. Complete reset would mean the games would be completely imbalanced for weeks or longer across the entire service, and we don't think that'll be a great experience for everyone. The thing is, I don't know if this is a consistent ideology, because on the one hand, you say that Overwatch 2 is a new game. 5v5 is a new game. It makes the game feel very different, because that's the whole selling point of Overwatch 2, right? And yet, you're saying that despite it being a new game, we want to measure people by the merits of what they did in the previous game. Oh, so that doesn't add up. Like, as a philosophy, that doesn't add up to me. It's like, either it's the same game, in which case you're lying when you say that it's Overwatch 2, or it's a different game, in which case, why would, like, the SR of Overwatch 1 be something you carry over? So I think it's like, it's a short-term versus a long-term thing, and they're thinking short-term. I don't hate them for it, because they need the launch of Overwatch 2 to be as good as possible. So it would be a month of a bit of a roller coaster. And again, the more you play, the less of a roller coaster it would be, versus a potential lifetime of roller coastering, right? Which is what we have right now. We reset, or we didn't reset people's MMR during roll lock. 2+ years later, we still suffer from people sitting on their off-roll SR. If you were ever going to do an MMR reset, you would do it now, when you're making a physically new game, when you're calling it Overwatch 2. If you don't do it now, you're never going to do it, which means that forever now, we're going to sit with that problem of like off-roll SR and people camping. Now, they're saying they're adding a new decay system, so I don't know, maybe this decay system will take care of the people who haven't played for a long time, but it would still not potentially deal with the problem of people who've been like off-roll SRing, or they are playing but just not enough, because it's like accounts who haven't played in a while. What if you played last season, played 5 games? Is that okay? What if all you have to do is play Overwatch? Because at the moment, if you logged into Overwatch and you hadn't played in 3 years, if you logged in this season and you placed, you'd probably just get placed where you were. So if you wanted to keep your MMR in Overwatch 2, would all you need to do is log in before the last season, and then you get to stick where you were? No MMR reset players like me would get stomped. Why are you afraid of getting stomped, Hustleman? Can I ask that question as well? Here's a duality, if you want to, you know, the conflict. You can either get stomped for a couple weeks, or and if you want to climb, at some point you will have to be stomped. So why are you afraid of being stomped? And the other thing is, like, if the SR matchmaking is bad, your games will just be bad. You may not be put against GMs, but you're still gonna get potentially bad games because the matchmaking is still off. So you can either get potentially a GM who stomps you, which again, remember, statistically it's so unlikely. This is the other thing that you have to remember, is that statistically you're not looking at, if you're silver, the high likelihood of you getting put in a GM level lobby. The high likelihood is at best you're gonna get put up against like plats, because that's just the average player base. Like about 50% of the player base is gold plat, right? So the high likelihood is that the majority of your lobby will be gold plat. So it's basically that versus potentially having shit matchmaking forever, even in Overwatch 2. How can you trust the same ranking system to correctly rank all players but not trust it to rank a subset of players with wrong ranks? Because the whole point is people have been sitting on their rank, Blue Cloud. The point is that there's people who are basically softly manipulating the matchmaker to keep where they are. And the other there's 2 big problems basically. One is camping, which hopefully, well, I say hopefully the decay system should counter, but like I said, if you just log in for 1 day, do your placements, will that counter your decay? 2, the lack of reset from off rolls. And those 2 problems are being lingering over us like a dark cloud, right? The reason the matchmaker doesn't put someone who's off rolling in a good SR is because whatever the decision they made is that person should be ranked the same across all 3 roles for whatever their pre-roll QSR was. So the matchmaker is doing its job, but it's just prioritizing them in a bad idea. Rather than trying to take each role individually, it's giving them the blanket SR. And those people are sitting there now, soft tossing a lot of games, or just not playing a lot and playing a few games and soft tossing those games. I'm not even flaming anyone else. Take me as an example. Never played DPS on the SCB account. Placed for the first time after like 20 seasons of comp of role queue and got given 3850. And basically I was like plat level because I went and got a new account. I had to grind through plat, as you guys have seen. So the options are throw 1,000 SR worth of games to get where I actually belong, or just sit there and camp my SR. And I gotta tell you, it was much more appealing to sit there and camp my SR and claim that I'm a, you know, nearly GM level DPS just for free. And I guarantee you there's plenty of people who weren't like, you know what I need to do? I need to go grind my DPS on another account to get it right now. What's the main benefit of MMR reset? Giving everyone a chance to be their true rating. It's not so much about like, aha, I'm actually gold, but I would actually be GM if I got an MMR reset, because that's just not true. Because that you can do that for free by buying, or not free, but you can do that for like 10 bucks buying an account. The bigger argument is to bring people down who've been hoarding their SR and are basically boosted either by the decay that I was talking about, or meta boosted is another form of it, where people are just basically. And here's the other thing. This is where it's going to really matter, and you're going to hear streamers moan about it a lot, because you know that streamers are majority like GMs, and there's going to be a large number of people who've been, no offense, boosted by, okay, some offense intended, boosted by double shield, for example. I don't mean like physically boosting in terms of like you paid someone to do it, but like, you know, they've exploited a mechanic that no longer exists. Double shield doesn't exist in Overwatch 2. So why should your SR, let's say climbing in double shield, let's say for example Orisa. Orisa is a great example because she's a completely new hero in Overwatch 2. What if you're an Orisa one trick and you made your way to GM and now she's a new hero and you get GM for free when you maybe have zero ability on that new hero and there's no hero that transfers to your old hero's ability? Why do you get to keep GM there? What about Doomfist? Like, how do you handle someone how do you handle Quakedawn, who's like basically a Doomfist, you know, specialist? I won't call him an OTP, but he's a Doomfist specialist. Now his character's in a different role. Are you gonna give him GM on tank, or are you gonna give him GM on DPS? Because if you're giving him GM on DPS, well, the character that he got to GM with DPS on is in a different category. And if you give him GM on tank, well, the character that's been put there is a different role, and he's not actually been playing tank. Maybe he's not versed at playing tank Doomfist. So how do you handle these people when you're claiming that you're making these like big sweeping changes? You're reworking a Bastion, you're reworking a Sombra, you're reworking XYZ, but oh, we're gonna take the stats from that and bring it to Overwatch 2 anyways. Like, it doesn't. That's what I was saying earlier when I said it's a philosophy that doesn't add up. It's not a consistent philosophy, because you can't claim to have reworked heroes but then give people the same SR for those same different heroes. But the game isn't so much different that a GM will be silver. They don't have to be silver, but if they were, let's say, diamond, is that not 1,000 SR? Tank role is going to be the most affected by this, because you've gone from 2 tanks to 1. What if that person is just awful at playing 1 tank on their own? Yeah, I don't get what people are afraid of, really. People are afraid of a few unbalanced games. Have you played Overwatch 1? Like, people are afraid of a month of unbalanced games. Is that not what a whole new fucking game is supposed to be? It's like a reboot. You know, like when a film reboots itself. But why would you be like, we're gonna reboot Harry Potter, but we're gonna have a 30-year-old Danny Radcliffe still playing Harry Potter? Just pretend that he's young again. Just pretend that he looks like a kid. Forget about it. It's, you know, it's a different film, but it's the same guy. Just forget about it. Like, has anyone ever made this argument for a new game? Has anyone ever said, like, when Valorant launches, like, oh shit, guys, we need to base people's SR off of another game, because it would just be chaos if we started a ranked system and we had nothing to base it off of except the matchmaker itself. And it's like, what are you talking about? Just let the games play. And the matchmaker should automatically, within, like, if the matchmaker is good, and if you, like, most companies will claim, oh, within 5 to 10 games we can figure out where someone should be, then it'll figure it out automatically. Like, I've never heard this argument about, like, well, you know, comp is an absolute dog shit hole in, like, this new game because it's a new game. It's like, what are you talking about? If the matchmaker is good, then Misplagued folks will get to their true MMR faster. Well, they won't, because it's much more, like, it's simple maths, guys. Okay, this is the last time I'm gonna explain it. Simple maths. If somebody is, let's say, 3,800 and they should be 2,800, it's a hell of a lot quicker to be like, boom, 2,800, than to be like, okay, well, to drop 1,000 SR, you're probably looking at like a 40% win rate. Remember, they're not going to lose 100% of their games. It's impossible to be that bad. Like, you could probably be an actual AI and probably still get like a 30% win rate just off the back of, like, your teammates will sometimes team diff the enemy team. So the argument of like, well, they'll eventually get to where they're supposed to be if they're bad, doesn't hold up, because the amount of time we're talking about is so much larger than the amount of time in which if you just reset everyone's MR and let them go. That's 10 games versus 100 games. That's the difference. Reset everyone's MMR and in 10 games they get to where they're supposed to be. Don't reset their MMR and it takes them 100 games to eventually drop to where they're supposed to be. That's the difference.